Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started a little bit earlier. I know the schedule said it's going to start around 9:15, but you're all seated and ready to go, so we are too.
Okay.
Chancellor?
Thank you.
Have a seat. Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ken Kettenbiel. I'm the Vice Chancellor for External Relations, and I will be your host today in asking you all the tough questions. You're smiling, good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now.
During the summer before Chancellor Grasso started, he sent me an email about a communications idea that he saw from another university, Berkeley, and we modeled today after that idea, where basically someone from the communications department interviews the president of that university and possibly other leaders across campus. So we thought that was a good idea. This does replace the staff forum that was canceled on Halloween because we were working on this. Clearly, this is a better turnout that we typically see at those events. And we also, Domenico wanted to include faculty, which makes a lot of sense. And the intent of these is just to communicate news about things happening at the university, big news, some initiatives, and also allow the campus an opportunity to ask questions. So I should note too, we are recording this, so please be on your best behavior and no tough questions at the end, just kidding. But we were going to post this to the Chancellor's website. We will also include a link in the Reporter on the 26th of November. And I should say too, we received about 30 questions from during the RSVP process. The vast majority of those questions were going to be covered in the content that we had today, but we are going to write responses for all of those questions if we don't get to all of them, and we're going to post those on the website as well. There were some great questions there, so we're not done after today. You're okay with that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
And did you want to say that we're going to turn it to a podcast?
Yes. Right now we are recording this, but our hope is to move to a podcast format so you can listen to these on your way into work if you're unable to make some of these sessions. And clearly we don't have every staff and faculty member here today, but it would make it convenient too to stay abreast of information here happening on campus. So Domenico, thank you for your time and the idea. It's an awesome idea. And so the first one's really just a softball. You've been here for a little over 100 days. We waited till after the probation period was over, the 90-day probation period before we started this. So that's good. And just talk a little bit about what you've been doing, since August 1st. I know you've been very, very busy and meeting with a lot of different people across the community, across campus. So reflections on the first 100 days.
Well, I've had a terrific first 100 days. I've met with a lot of folks on campus. I've met with leaders, of course, of the various units on campus, leaders in Ann Arbor, alumni. We've had alumni events where we had receptions around the state, and that was very exciting. I've traveled, meeting alums in California, in Florida. I've met with student groups. So it's been very exciting for me to learn more about the university and to hear all the exciting things that people see that have happened here and that they're hoping for in the future. So it's been a terrific first 100 days.
And understand you had an opportunity to meet Mayor Duggan
I
at
did.
a Public Allies event
Yes.
earlier in the fall, and then of course Mayor O'Reilly, you and your wife Susan had a pretty in-depth conversation with him. And if you want to share any reflections from that Mayor O'Reilly meeting? Or?
Well, I think that with Mayor O'Reilly, one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize is I think that for the University of Michigan-Dearborn to be successful, Dearborn has to be successful. And for Dearborn to be successful, the University of Michigan-Dearborn has to be successful. So I want to work much more collaboratively to really try to have a connection with the city, both physically and programmatically. And he was excited about that, and I think that there are exciting things in the future. And we also met with Debbie Dingle, and that was a great conversation as well.
Cool. And you had your first MASU board meeting, so the Michigan Association of State Universities, the chancellor, as all the chancellors and presidents for the 15 public universities make up the board. Mm-hmm. So you've had a chance to meet your peers. Mm-hmm. So, well. So your trip out to California, you're a huge, obviously you're a Michigan man. You have Michigan, I don't know if camera probably won't zoom in, but there's little block M's on your blazer buttons here. And I understand you met an equally passionate alum out in California, John Young.
John Young. And John is one of our alums. And I don't think that I would say that I'm equally passionate, because I don't think you can approach his enthusiasm for the university. He has a building in Southern California, in the San Diego area, and he owns the building, and at the top of the building it says Champions of the West. That's what he's called, the building. Just to give you a sense of this, he owns a Hummer, which is maize, and it says Go Blue on the side, and there's a big block M on it, and his whole office is done in Michigan paraphernalia, and he has beautiful, beautiful office, and over his desk is a Wolverine, a stuffed Wolverine that overlooks his work there. So John is quite an enthusiastic Michigan supporter. It was a delight to meet him. Of course, he is also the sponsor of the Young Family Connector. For those of you who have been to Ann Arbor, between the Big House and Chrysler Arena there.
And then, for those of you who don't know, we have been tracking the Chancellor's 100 days, so there's a lot of photos on his website. There'll be another link in Reporter for you to check those out. There's pictures from the visit. You can see what John's Hummer looks like if you're interested. And so there's a lot of great pictures there of the Chancellor and his engagement. So you have an interesting way of coming to campus every day. So talk about your means of communication.
Well,
I'm sorry, of transportation.
Right. Well, I'd like to do it every day, but it doesn't always lend itself to it. I like to bike to work when I can, and right now I'm in the process of putting snow tires on my bike so I can get in through the winter, and hopefully I'll be able to do it as frequently as I can.
So your plan is to bike through the winter here?
Yep. I biked through the winter in Vermont, and I think that Michigan is going to be challenging, but I don't think it'll be any more challenging than Vermont was.
I agree. And have you had a chance to explore the community on your bike? Any extended trips?
Well, the Heinz Drive ride is very nice, and I went out to Northville. It was a extended ride. It was about 42 miles round trip, but it was very nice because it's all blocked off, no cars, beautiful scenery, so it was a lot of fun.
Interactions with faculty and staff. You've done a lot of welcomes and greetings. You've been involved in meetings with the Staff Senate, the Faculty Senate. You've visited my department and other departments across campus. Any takeaways, from your interaction with all of us?
My takeaways is that there is massive enthusiasm on this campus. Everybody is very proud to work here. They feel their work is truly consequential, and it is, because it's transformative in the lives of our students. And I've been really taken aback by how dedicated, every place I've worked we've had dedicated people, but this is really over the top in terms of dedication of the staff and the faculty here. So I'm very, very happy to be part of this family and to join it. And I've been traveling to these different departments. I'm hoping to go to more departments, all departments, both academic and non-academic departments, as the year evolves. And I'm also, for those of you who know, that there's a chancellor's residence. I don't know if everybody knows that, but there is a chancellor's residence, and we're hoping to have many events at the chancellor's residence. And we just had the faculty and staff councils together for an event there, and hopefully we'll have many, many more events and invite everybody there.
So I guess for the people that don't know, where do you live? Where's the house? It's in Dearborn.
Right. Do you want the specific address? I'm just worried about that.
Are you having a party this weekend?
Right. I don't want anybody toilet paper the trees or anything.
You touched on family, and I think a lot of us agree. I mean, there's 1,000 faculty and staff, and there really is a family feel. And to hear you use that word, you're picking up on the culture here. It appears so. Questions about some leadership searches. There's 2 key leadership positions that are currently open. We received a lot of questions about this. So the first one is the Vice Chancellor for Institutional Advancement. Mallory will be stepping down, retiring at the end of this year. And then there's a vice provost for enrollment management, and we'll talk about that title change and that reporting structure in a bit. But talk a little bit about what you're looking for in the next vice chancellor for institutional advancement.
Well, first, let me thank Mallory. Where is Mallory here? I want to give her a round of applause. Mallory's done a terrific job, and her shoes are going to be very difficult to fill. But as we do the search, we're going to be looking for someone who's going to help us raise the resources to realize the dreams that we're going to be dreaming through a strategic planning effort, hopefully coming soon. So it's someone who has a lot of experience, but also has enormous fire in their belly, and is going to think creatively about how we can really gain the resources that we're going to need to do all the things we want to do.
And we'll talk more about the strategic plan, but you envision that plan giving, providing more reasons and more structure to the things that are important here on this campus to arm that department to raise more money.
Yes, yes. We need a vision and a plan.
And you are going to be a big partner in this. You want to spend a lot of time on the road, even more so than, you had some initial visits with donors, but you threw out a percentage of time that you would like to be out really telling the U of M-Dearborn story and looking for additional resources, and that how much time?
Well, I see this as one of my major jobs, is to raise resources for the university. So I'm hoping to spend about at least 30% of my time out there meeting with alums, donors, foundations, corporations, individuals that I think we can excite about the vision and the mission of this university.
So the other position, the vice provost for enrollment management, you shared a communication that the past position, vice chancellor for enrollment management student life, has been split apart, with the student life portion reporting to Dean of Students Amy Finley, and the looking for the vice provost for enrollment management, with both reporting into the provost office. So first, why the change with the reporting structure, and second, what are you going to be looking for in this leadership position?
Well, let me again thank Ray Metz for all his outstanding work and leadership in running EMSL in the past. Just looking forward, it's a big job. Enrollment management and student life are two enormous tasks. And at most large universities, they're separated. So in terms of focusing on those two things individually, I think it was in our best interest to separate those out and to assign student life, of course, to the Dean of Students. And Amy is doing a tremendous job there, very capable individual, and we're very lucky to have her. And we're looking for an equally capable individual to help with enrollment management. Enrollment management has become a very significant part of the success of any institution. As a matter of fact, the Chronicle of Higher Education a few years ago had a front page story, and the title of the story was "The Hottest Seat on Campus," and it was the Director of Enrollment Management, because that position is responsible for bringing in the class with hopefully the net tuition revenue that helps run the institution. And we're so dependent on tuition revenue here that is a critical part of our success.
In Michigan in particular, with the declining school-age population, I mean, we're all competing for a smaller audience, and we have to think bigger, than possibly beyond our traditional markets.
For sure. And I think that we have the ability to access a larger market portion than we have, because one of the things that I'd like us to do more significantly as we go forward than we already have is to leverage the Block M. We're part of the University of Michigan. That is probably the most significant academic brand in the world. And I think that we are fortunate to be part of this family, and I want to make sure that we leverage it to the best of our abilities.
So another initiative that you've talked about and shared is the development of a strategic enrollment management plan. So this would be his or her, whoever fills this position, really their first priority, their first initiative right out of the gate. So talk about the importance of what is that? What is a SEM plan, for those of you who don't know, and then why is it so important?
Well, I think that it's very difficult to get to where you want to be without a plan, right? So you need to know where you're going, and part of the strategic enrollment management plan is going to be to identify where we want to go. I don't think it would be that I would be saying anything that would be a surprise to anybody to say that I want, and I think we all want, to grow the enrollment of this university. It was my understanding that there was a target set a few years ago of 12,000. I think that we can achieve that and go beyond that. And I think we need a plan in terms of where we're going to get those students, how we're going to attract them here, how we're going to yield them here, and then how we're going to be able to provide the financial support for those students, especially the ones that come from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds, which is a major part of what the mission of this university is.
So we talked about this individual be leading this effort, but it really will be a collaborative effort from really across the campus.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's not one person's job, it's...
No, so let me just say one thing about that. There's and Jeff Evans, who's sitting in the back, and I have talked for a long time about this. There's an approach called the balanced scorecard approach, which was developed at Harvard Business School, and it's something that I would like to use as part of our management approach here, which is that everybody is responsible for the success of the institution. So enrollment management is not just enrollment management's responsibility. The faculty are responsible, the people in facilities are responsible, the administration is responsible, everybody is responsible for the success of all of our units, so that we're not in competition with each other, we're collaborative with each other. So as we develop this strategic enrollment management plan, we're going to be asking everybody for their best ideas on where they think the future of enrollment management is going to be here.
And I assume that would include graduate and both international populations.
Oh, for sure, for sure, absolutely. The international certainly adds diversity, the graduate profile adds diversity. At the London Times, when they rank their universities, their world universities, they use a category called intellectual density, which doesn't sound very good, but
what does it mean?
What it means is that they look at the proportion of graduate students to undergraduate students, and the larger the proportion of graduate students, the higher the intellectual density, because they're thinking that that increases the intellectual metabolism of the university, because you're having lectures and seminars and conversations at multiple levels and at high levels. So we want to make sure that the graduate profile is also very robust here.
You shared there's search committees for both positions. I'm chairing the Vice Chancellor for Institutional Advancement, and Carrie Schumacher is chairing the Vice Provost for Enrollment Management. Gotta get that down. When do you hope to have the positions filled by?
I'm hoping that we have them named and that they are on the ground in the first quarter of next year.
Perfect. Campus strategic plan. So we're going to be busy. I mean, there's the SEM plan that's going, we have 2 new leadership positions starting. There's a SEM plan that's going to be kicked off, and then there's a campus-wide strategic plan. Talk a little bit about what that is, what your vision is, and how we will be engaged in that process.
So again, I hope everybody's engaged in that process. We're going to have a lot of opportunity for everybody to be engaged. We'll have forums. We will have websites that you can submit ideas to and respond to what's coming out in draft form. But one of the things we're going to start with in terms of the strategic plan for the university is we've been working on a white paper, and that I hope is going to come out in the next couple of weeks. And it's just going to formulate the thinking behind the strategic plan. And just to give you a preview, there are going to be 3 major components that we're going to be looking at. One is performance principles, and that's how we do our work on a daily basis, that we're committed to excellence in everything we do, we're good stewards of resources, things along those lines. Then we're going to talk about core values, and those core values are going to be things like student success, which is going to be our ultimate core value, or faculty success, or inclusive excellence. These are core values. And then the third component is what our strategic differentiators are. What makes our university different and appealing in the grand scheme of a very competitive higher education landscape. So those are going to be the 3 major components of the strategic plan. The narrative that we're trying to put together right now is going to just contextualize it and motivate the initiative. But we will be putting teams together early part of next year. It'll be probably a 9 to 12 month process, so we can really engage people on and off campus, alums, community members, corporations. We're going to try to engage a lot of different individuals, Ann Arbor, of course. So this is something that hopefully at the end of this process, everybody's going to be excited about it and everybody is going to own it.
And I'm assuming with a process like that, it really will impact all of our departments. It's going to allow us to channel financial resources to certain areas. It will allow us to say no to certain things that don't necessarily fall into the plan and into the direction that's your hope to really focus efforts. And
Yep. And just yesterday, I made a comment. We were hosting the University of Michigan Research Office folks and our folks together for a conference, and I said, the University of Michigan is a great institution, and we can do anything we want, but what we can't do is everything. So a strategic plan helps us decide what we can do and what we're going to invest in and what we're going to be great at, but it's going to also help us decide what we can't do, and that's almost as important. When Stanford became such a great university in the middle part of the last century, they had a provost there named Terman, and he made a comment that's been widely quoted. He said that he wanted to build at Stanford spires of excellence, not plateaus of mediocrity. Because if you invest in everything, then you end up being mediocre in everything. You have to identify what you're going to be excellent in. And over time, what happens is you invest in these spires of excellence, and then you can go back and fill in the valleys between the spires. But you have to do it in a staged way because you can't do it all at once.
so you talked about faculty and student success. One of the questions that were submitted is, one of the audience members was interested, how do you define student success?
How do I define student success? Well, I would like to define student success as, first of all, transforming their lives in a way that allows them to realize their dreams throughout their life. So one of the things that we're doing in the senior leadership is I've asked our senior leaders to read a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and some of you have read it. But it is and if you haven't read it, I highly recommend that you read it. I was just speaking with folks at DTE, and they use it in their senior leadership development program there as well. And it says this concept of mindset is if you have a growth mindset, that where you start does not impact where you end up. So if you can set up our students, or if we can set up our students to continue to learn and to grow every day, which is not a new concept, but the way that Carol has laid it out based in firm psychological analysis shows that you can really have a fulfilling and very productive life. And that's what I would like our programs here, our experience here to do for our students is to transform their lives so they can realize whatever dream they want to. And it doesn't mean that they all go out and make a lot of money. It has nothing really to do with money, but that they're realizing a lifestyle that they are comfortable in, both professionally and personally. And a lot of times at schools that are trying to transform individuals' lives, we focus all too often only on their professional aspect of their life, and we don't look at their overall well-being. And this is something I really want to focus on here, is looking at their professional experience in their lives, as well as their potential well-being in other aspects of their lives.
So the white paper you mentioned, you're hoping to have it out in December, and you're asking faculty and staff to really think about it, and it's sort of the prep work before we really get into the roll up your sleeves and get into the strategic planning process.
Yes. Short answer.
And you like short answers. If you talk about something that you shared with me is bottom line up front.
Yes.
You have a philosophy on communications and meetings, so share with the audience.
Well, I was in the military, and one of the things you learn in the military for briefings is an acronym called BLUF, which is bottom line up front. So I've asked our team when they do briefings or presentations that I'd like to know what the bottom line is first before they go into, pages and pages of how they did their analyses, and then I get to the bottom line at the end. So that's just a way that I've learned to do it. It's very effective, and I would encourage you to consider it if you're not already doing it.
So putting the surprise up front.
Yes, yeah, no surprise.
No surprise, military.
Yes.
You touched on this earlier. There's a couple new ways of connection to the faculty and staff that you were going to share. You talked about visits that you're going to make starting after the first of the year to the academic and non-academic units across campus, but you also want to start office hours.
Yes, I think that I'd like to have office hours, which would be a diminutive form of this event here, where I would just make myself available, and we'll see how it goes. And if it turns out that it's if a lot of people come, then we might have to do more office hours or do it by signing up, so that I want to be able to speak to individuals personally and answer questions that anybody might have.
Including students.
Including students, yeah, of course. Oh, I've had great meetings with Vivian Adams, who's the student government president, and she's been terrific.
Okay. Before we open it up to questions, I thought we'd go through just a quick little speed round of some personal information. We'll ask just so the audience gets to know you a little bit better.
Well, let me start with pronouncing my name, all right? Okay. Because I know that this is an unusual name. So do you mind if I just go through?
Absolutely.
All right. So my name is Domenico. It's an Italian name, and there have been and if anybody listens to NPR, the lead political correspondent on NPR is Domenico Montanaro. So there are others. I don't want you to think I'm the only one. At least there's one other. And if that name does not flow melodically off your tongue, you can call me Dominic. You can call me Dom. I prefer Domenico. But what I don't like, all right, and I'll just be blunt about this, is Domenico, all right? It just is totally, it grates on my ears, except for on St. Patrick's Day, then I can go by Domenico Grasso, okay? And then I can take it. But otherwise, if Domenico is challenging, Dominic is fine.
All right. So talk about the best advice you've ever received in your life.
I've had a lot of advice. Tuck in your shirt, comb your hair, cut your hair. I would say that probably the best advice is, of course, from my mother, because mothers always give terrific advice. Mm-hmm. And she said, just be yourself. And she said that to me, to our children. And she would always follow it up by saying that we did not come from a lot of money. We didn't come from any money, actually. So this was very good advice. She said, you make money, money doesn't make you. So it was just another way of trying to contextualize, do what makes you happy in your life, and don't worry about everything else.
We talked earlier, you're a huge Michigan football fan.
Yep. And
you tweeted something this morning.
I'm just going to say that. So yes, where is Michelle?
She's in the bed.
Oh, Michelle, my
She shook her
executive
head
assistant.
No, for some reason.
She was very instrumental in helping me acquire, you're shaking your head, a football that came to me yesterday that said, congratulations, I wish you all the best in your new job, signed by Jim Harbaugh. So I'm sitting in my office.
So we can see that during office hours.
You can come to my office anytime.
That's awesome.
But don't touch it.
You are a big sports fan.
Yes.
Grew up in the Boston area. Mm-hmm. Congratulations on your Red Sox. Mm-hmm. You do realize half the team were Detroit Tigers?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and I'm very appreciative of that.
So any chance of you adopting any of the Detroit sports teams as your?
Oh yeah, of course. I've adopted all the Detroit teams now. But I have to say, even when I was a little kid, well, first of all, when I was a little kid, and I was a big sports fan and rooted for all of the Boston teams, they were terrible, okay? The Red Sox were awful. Everybody remembers Bucky Dent, right? So that's been burnt into my memory. But one of the teams that I rooted for very vigorously when I was a youngster were the Tigers. So I was a big Tigers fan even when I was little. So I'm clearly still a Tigers fan. I appreciate it. They lent us some players last year. Yeah.
You even got the general manager.
Right. Yeah. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed for the Lions because the Patriots were awful for many, many years, and then they turned into a dynasty. And I think that that's in the future for the Lions.
So did you have a favorite Detroit Piston back in the late 80s? For those of us that are a little older, there was a huge rivalry between the Pistons and the Celtics.
Yeah, I can't recall that.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. No problem. Thanksgiving is next week.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4 children.
Yep.
They're coming into your home. Just talk about your children and then maybe any family traditions that you have for Thanksgiving.
Well, we have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. The 2 boys both work for J.P. Morgan. One works in Denver and the other works in New York City. And the girls, one just graduated as an engineer, but she's doing Teach for America in New Orleans. We're very proud of her for doing that. And then our other is finishing up college at the University of Delaware. But our family tradition is that we have a family football game on Saturday morning, and it's always the boys against the girls, and the boys win. It's tackle. Actually, it's not boys against the girls, but we have a lot of fun, and we do play football.
So you're competitive.
Yes, well, there's a lot of competition.
Great. We have in Legacy Magazine, which is coming out tomorrow, I believe, we have an article about the Chancellor, a little bit more personal insight on his style. So you can check that out. There's also a new website that we're launching to go along with this. So there's a lot more information if you want to learn a little bit about the personal side of him. And we're excited to push that out, like I said, in a day or so. So with that, that's the formal grilling, if you will, on the questions. But there's one question I thought I would start with that came from the audience. And then as I mentioned, we are going to answer all the questions that were submitted. Hopefully you feel a lot of the questions, maybe if you submitted one, was covered, but we'll get to your questions from the audience next. But we had a couple questions about how you envision working with Ann Arbor. This often comes up here. As presidents change in Ann Arbor, there's different theories and thoughts about how the 3 campuses can work together, but how do you see us working with the other campus to the west? So
let me just say that I have really enjoyed getting to know and working with Mark Schlissel. I think out of everybody in higher education I've worked with in my life, he's probably one of the most articulate, thoughtful, and really outstanding leaders. So I think we're very fortunate to have him here. And we've developed a very good working relationship. And I see us trying to work with Ann Arbor as closely and as often as we can. There's absolutely no reason for us not to take advantage of a great institution that's just around the corner from us, and especially that has a very strikingly similar name to ours. So I think that we should really take as much advantage of that as we can.
Okay, we have a couple people with mics in the back. If you have any questions, just raise your hand and we'll bring a mic to you. Don't be shy.
Pretend this is like one of those press conferences on TV that you've seen lately, and that'd be kind of fun.
Good one, Karen. If you could just say your name too and what
Pat
department
Hartshorn,
you work in.
Nat Sci. I teach at 10, so I'm going to step out. But including the relationship with Ann Arbor, is there any talk of money flowing this way from Ann Arbor in the future?
Well, I would say that we are an independent institution from Ann Arbor, and I don't think that we should expect another institution to really subsidize us except through partnerships. So I see potential resources coming from Ann Arbor in partnerships that we might be working with them on. But I do see us trying to acquire resources from a lot of different other institutions in the state as we move forward.
Good morning, Dr. Grasso. My name is Greg Peoples, and I have two comments. First of all, I want to thank you for hosting these conversations because in addition to informing the campus community about your thoughts, this gives us an opportunity as members of the community to interact with one another and find out a little bit more about what other people do in different areas, and I think that's very, very important. The other thing you talked a lot about was the student success aspect of your philosophy here, and I come from a background where student affairs is very, very strong. Having separated the two, the enrollment management and student life operations, oftentimes when that happens, student life takes a back seat because they aren't necessarily recognized as being at the head table when you serve. So how do you intend to help that not be the case here at Michigan?
Well, I think student life should absolutely not take a back seat to anything. That's why we're all here. And as a matter of fact, after we separated student life from enrollment management, we invited Amy to join the senior leaders at the senior officers and deans meetings. So she is very much present as part of the senior leadership of the university, and I am going to treat that office and her position as similar as I treat all the senior leaders of the university.
Hi, I'm Patty Martin. I'm from the Castle Co-op program. It's weird having my back to all those people, but like you, 30% of my job is outside the university. In my case, it's generally with employers. And I wonder if you've had any impressions so far of our special reputation of our students with employers in your meetings so far.
The employers with whom I've spoken with are very impressed with the graduates that leave here and go to work for them, that they're ready to hit the ground running, they're practice oriented, they're dedicated, hardworking. So I think that our product of our students is one of our biggest sellers. We just have to make sure that everybody realizes what an opportunity they have in hiring our graduates. So I've been very impressed by what I've heard about our graduates out there. And our commencement speaker this year is one of our graduates, and she went off to Ann Arbor to get another degree, but she's now the chief economist for Ford, so she's a prime example of someone who's done extraordinarily well coming out of here.
Good morning, and Domenico, I echo what others have said. Thank you so much for having this session this morning. I'm Joy Beatty. I'm from the College of Business, and I'm also involved a lot in faculty governance. So I had some questions for you on what do you see as the role of shared governance, or what's your experience been in involving faculty in key decisions? So for example, things like search committees, which we have coming up. How have you been reaching out to Faculty Senate here to make sure we have good governance?
Well, that's an excellent question. And universities are interesting organizations because it is definitely not a top-down. It's as far from the military as you can get, right? Which has been my experience. Faculty behave in ways that would be equivalent to perhaps, especially the tenured faculty, or the senior faculty, tenured or not, that would be similar to like managing directors in a corporation or senior partners in a law firm, so that they are very important in the direction that is being set by the institution. But shared governance from faculty involvement is critical to academic success. There's no question about it. And the faculty have to be not only consulted, but their opinions taken seriously and really work together to form consensus building as we go forward. But I think in good management, it goes beyond the faculty. I think that the shared governance should extend to the staff as well and the students. And you should involve as many constituencies that are stakeholders as possible so that everybody has a say in important decisions and that they can feel a sense of ownership of that decision once it's made. And I have to say, though, shared governance does not always mean that that you will come to a consensus, and at some point, perhaps someone has to take a position and take a stand, and you have to make a tough decision. Unfortunately, that's either the provost or the chancellor or president, and those are things that have to happen. But you have to, I think it's absolutely important to consult before any decisions are made.
Good morning. I'm Robin Wagner. I work in financial services as an analyst. And the question I have for you is, what do you see as the role of instructional technology and administrative technology in terms of raising the bar on our decision making and improving and raising our students' experience, instructional experience on the campus?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, first, my background, as many of you know, is engineering, so I'm very data-driven. And I think that data and technology are critical to making good decisions, but the decision is still a human decision. I don't think we should abdicate our judgment in favor of data alone. So the data informs a decision. We should use it to help us think through issues. But in terms of technology, technology is changing at a rapid rate. Place-based education is coming under attack from many different aspects of our community. So we have to start to think about how best to use technology in our educational process. And one of the things that, I should have said this before, that I'm going to ask our strategic planning effort to take under consideration is this concept of tabula rasa, which is a Latin term for blank slate. So I am going to ask everybody to think about our future without necessarily being chained to our past. And I've quoted this many times in the last couple of days, but I'll do it yet again, which is Shakespeare's line from The Tempest, which said, "The past is prologue, the future is in our hands for discharge." So I think that that is what I would like us to think about. Technology is changing everything, so we should really think how we want to deliver education in the future. Should we have flipped classrooms are an interesting, many of you have heard about flipped classrooms, but my favorite anecdote about a flipped classroom was when it first started becoming popular and all these science and engineering professors had come up with flipped classroom ideas about recording their lectures, and then you listen to the lecture and you come prepared. And I had a humanities professor come up to me and he said, "I just don't understand why all these science people are getting on board with flipped classrooms. We've been doing it forever in the humanities. It was called read the book before you come to class." And I think that it depends on your perspective on these things, but I think technology is going to play a major role, and we really have to think deep and hard about how we leverage it.
Hi, I'm John Cristiano from the College of Engineering and Computer Science. You've spoken about growing the research activities on the campus. Can you talk about your view of the role that research plays on our campus and the development of a culture?
Sure. I think that's a great question, John. I think that we have a modest research enterprise right now, and I think that there is a lot of room to grow the research enterprise. And research plays an important role at an institution like the University of Michigan-Dearborn from a lot of different perspectives. First, an active and robust research enterprise keeps our faculty informed of what is happening at the cutting edge of their field. So they are not just the recipients and the users of technology, but they are the developers and creators of this technology and knowledge. So I think that that's important. I think that it also is an indication that our faculty are at the same quality level of many of what the peers that we would want to aspire to be in terms of their scholarly activities. And it provides opportunities for our students to get involved in these different projects. And if we do work with industry, then we have connections on, with our students, not only working on those projects, but also working with the industry and potentially getting a job. So there are a lot of opportunities there. It also, of course, brings revenue to the university that will be another aspect of how we can fund a lot of our work. But let me just say that I do not want us to think of doing research from the perspective of being a dilettante, that we would just do research because we want to dabble in the research. My goal is that our research is excellent. It is no different than the research that's done at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, Stanford, MIT, or Harvard. We do it at a different quantity level. So we don't produce 5 papers a year or 5 patents or develop new laboratories every semester. We may do it over a prolonged period of time rather than 5 papers a year. A faculty member they put out 1 paper every 5 years because we have a much higher teaching load and we're much more engaged with our undergraduate students. But that paper shows up in the same type of journal as a paper that our colleagues at other great universities are doing. So that's our goal here, is to do excellent research, not compromising the quality of research, but have a different productivity level because of our different mission here.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Craig Donahue from Natural Sciences, and I wanted to ask a question that sort of has 1 foot in student success and 1 foot in enrollment management, and that is to observe what I think is a reality about this particular campus, which is different than certainly U of M Ann Arbor, and that is, for some students, often our best students, we are a stepping stone to another university. That is, I just got stopped in the hall 2 days ago by student Dave, who took chemistry with me last winter, asking me if I would write a letter of recommendation for him. And he wants to transfer. He said he was going to apply to U of M Ann Arbor and to Stanford. So I'm curious as to what your views are, and I just want to put that out there, and I don't think in the past we've necessarily acknowledged this, but we are in fact, for some fraction of our student population, a stepping stone, a year or 2 here, so they then can transfer to somewhere else. What are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts on that are that we should always hold the student's best interest paramount. So that's my thinking on that. But we should also have programs here that we are so proud of and are so dedicated to that a student would be foolish to transfer to Stanford and leave U of M-Dearborn, because we are offering them something special. And that's what this strategic plan is intended to do, is to help us identify how we're going to craft our programs. But if a student truly feels, and they can convince us that he or she would be better off at another institution, then we should help them realize their dreams. That's our goal, is to help them be successful. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we are doing everything we can here to be that first choice if you want to be successful. So I don't want us, I don't like the term stepping stone, but I do want us to be a portal for opportunity for these students wherever their lives may go.
We have time for one more question.
Did you want to follow?
I was going to follow up. As students transfer, for example, to U of M Ann Arbor, a year or 2 later, I get an email or a phone call asking me if I would write them a letter of recommendation. So we do have something important and unique here, and that's a very personal touch in our interactions with students. And yes, they like the big name schools and don't view Dearborn necessarily as that kind of institution, but they come to realize that the real unique and intimate interactions they've had are often with our faculty.
So let me just point out that when I was going around with Mallory and we were visiting some of our alums around the country in California and Florida, 3 of them that are super successful by traditional metrics of what most people would think, started out in Ann Arbor and transferred to the University of Michigan-Dearborn. And they finished their degrees here, and they came here for a variety of different reasons. But this they thought was a better avenue to success than staying in Ann Arbor. So what I would like to do is to see those transfers between Stanford and Ann Arbor and MIT going in the other direction, because we are doing things here that are really exciting.
One more question?
Yep.
Last question?
Again, my name is Greg Peoples. So along with the same line that Greg was talking about, I think one of the things that would be helpful for maintaining our enrollment here would be to have more of a residential campus.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's too early to talk about that, and maybe that's part of the strategic plan, but could you elaborate a little bit on what your thoughts are about having us become more of a residential campus?
I think that I would like to see us become more of a residential campus, because studies have shown that if you live on campus, your persistence to graduation is increased tremendously. So I would like to see more of our students living on campus. But at the same time, I know that a lot of our students can't afford to live on campus. But if we can generate the resources, perhaps we can have financial aid opportunities for these students so they can live on campus. I'd like us to build more residence facilities on campus to accommodate students that would be moving here. I'd like to expand our catchment basin so that it goes beyond southeastern Michigan, so that we can increase our geographical diversity as well. I think that there are students from around the country that would love to go to the University of Michigan if they thought that they could get in to this great institution, and I think that we'd be able to attract them here. But we'd have to have residential capacity. I don't want to build residence halls before we have the need for the residence halls. So we have to make sure that we can fund what we're building.
Chancellor, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time, and we look forward to doing this again.
Thank you all. And let me just say, even though we haven't started office hours, my door is always open if you want to talk about something that's important to you, or you have a suggestion. You can either email me or try to get on my calendar, which is very difficult to do. So, but thank you again.